Hello, this is Aaron Klein. I know it's weird that I'm doing a video now. It's been a little bit. I keep saying I'm gonna keep doing videos, right? I try. Um okay. I'll give you the updates at the end because that may be a little bit faster. Um I just got done I've had the book for probably I don't remember when it got released. I bought it at right at the end of the pre-order. I bought and I just finished reading Johnathan Pageau's Repunzle tale, his telling. Um, it's a beautiful book. I'm not going to go too deep into a review here. The book, it's beautiful. The artwork is beautiful. The storytelling is beautiful. Um, I think he missed the mark a little bit. And I think this probably has to do with how with the um, with the materials he had to use for the story. Um, to I'm gonna explain some of the symbolism I found, and then I'm just gonna go with my where I think things where he missed something. I think he missed one really big thing, which is kind of crazy. How do you miss something? How does he miss something? And I think it's probably to do with the fact that he he should have. I think he should have added a character. I know that sounds crazy, but I think he should have added a character to make the story better. Um, and I'll get into that. So to start off with, in the first couple pages of the book, you're introduced to a very poor couple, a woodsman and his wife, and they go about living, and she gets pregnant, and it's really obvious that the woman has extremely low impulse control because she is berating her husband to get her cabbage. So the husband says no for a long time, and then because there's just not none around, and he's not going to go. He's not going to be able to trade for any because they're poor. So he eventually stumbles across the wicked witch that was originally Snow White's stepmother, and it's not obvious, unless you catch it, but he stumbles across her garden because she's intentionally secluded herself from no she's been forced to seclude herself from society and to live out the rest of her days. So when he stumbles across her place, he steals a cabbage. That's once. This sort of he I think this is he's using this as an illusion. He's alluding to the Garden of Eden, but it's not. This is an imperfection here. I don't blame him too much because there's only so much you can do with the story. But he uses that to allude to the Garden of Eden, and but anyways, back to the story. The woodsman takes it back to his wife, and she's finally satiated. And then that doesn't last for very long, and then she wants more. And then he goes back telling her no, but he remembers where the house is, and he walks by the house again, and he's getting ready to go steal another one, and the evil, no longer queen witch comes out and says, "You're not taking any more. You will be paying for them." And then she strikes up, they have a little bit of a conversation. Then she strikes up a deal. You give me your child, and you can have all the cabbage you want. And then he goes through and just cuts them all down and takes them home. So between him and his wife, they are so short-sighted that they're willing to give up their daughter for their immediate gratification. So to put this into perspective, this story, it's actually, this first part of the story is actually a mirror of Jacob and Esau, except it's used for feminine parts. There is the short-sighted, low impulse control, low responsibility Esau, who gives up his birthright to Jacob because he wants immediate gratification. And there's an exchange here. I know that sounds crazy, but this is, I think, first thing, Johnathan missed this. I think he set it up wrong. This could have been an easier. This could have been easier to have happen. I mean, the artwork's beautiful, and I think the story works fine. But another thing that I think he could have added here is that she had managed to entrap another man, an older man that needed some company. I think this is where it could have been very valuable, because this is where the story kind of shifts into like a mirror of the Garden of Eden, the mirror of paradise. Because obviously the girl, once the child's born, the evil, no longer queen witch steals Repunzle. She and then she takes her home and raises her like one of her prized cabbage. But it's this weird. This is also where I think that this is where my book kind of unlocks something that Johnathan Pageau couldn't get to. I use two separate archetypes here. There is the spider mother, and then the I don't have like an animal. It's the low impulse control. What would be? I'll get there at some point, but the spider mother, I'm using spider specifically because that's actually a really good symbolic representation of how these overbearing women work. They build these elaborate nests that end up being prisons for their daughters. Oh, 1 second. Not just their daughters, for all their children. This is something that I've had to interact with. The Asher they keep out danger. They do a little bit too good of a job there. In fact, that brings on another issue of them not letting their children encounter malevolence and death and tragedy. But on the flip side, they prevent them from getting normal human interactions. To put it in perspective, just to play into the story a little bit, when Rapunzel was younger, she meets a young boy and goes and plays in one of the trees and watches the moon for a while. And then the boy skitters off, and Rapunzel comes back down, and she gets caught up in the trees because of her long hair, and she scrapes herself up on the way down. For normal, like for kids, the mother would just say, "Let's just cut the hair. Let's just be done with this. It's gonna be a hassle. It'll grow back." And for two, like, she's a kid. She's gonna get scraped up. She needs to feel the pain there, because that is a teaching method. And also she needs to have experienced the time with the other kid But then another thing that she needed to learn, which she does, is that kid skitters off. He's a coward. He just runs away. He doesn't wait around to meet the parent. That's something that kids need to be able to do. I think children need to be able, if they make friends, they need to be able to meet those kids' parents because they need to have interactions with adults. Because kids are humans too, and they can learn a whole lot more from those who are more developed than they are. They can learn a whole lot more a lot quicker. And they may not understand all of it at first, but as they grow up, that's going to sit in the background. It's just going to, like, they will hit social benchmarks a lot faster. And I don't mean like relationship, like dating, or like being ready for prom or anything like that. I mean, they'll hit like adult benchmarks, like being able to find people who are lying to you, people who are stealing from your business. They'll be able to understand people behind the veneer of what they say, and they'll see what they do. And they'll be able to see the signs beforehand, because people lie, and you can tell when people are lying when you have that experience early. But besides the point, this is where I think Johnathan Pageau should have added another character. Why he should have added that other character. He should have really, in fact, he should have changed the entire setup before the tower. He should have changed the setup to be more guarded, and to have the new spider mother be pushing the father out, because this is something that children need to see. Like pushing out her new husband, because he too is weak. Like a true father will step in and be like, hey, knock this stuff off. There has to be leeway. This kid has to develop. A true father is going to spend that time. And if the mother is preventing him, like, he's going to have real consequences for that woman. So like this would have been the perfect time. He could have made a really dark, webby, he could have made more like a webby prison-like environment with a whole bunch of pillows and blankets everywhere, and use whites and grays to like make it look like it was more like a spider's lair than instead of the garden environment that he did. I'm not saying that the garden is wrong, but he could have had shrubs with he could have had sections of the grass that were less trimmed, and shrubs that had spider webs growing in them. You see this if you have unkept grass in some places. The trees and the stuff that's low to the ground will get spider webs in it if it's left uncut for too long. Like, this is just a phenomenon that if you forget to cut your grass, you will have spiders come up around. And that's actually better than the alternative, which is snakes or really bad insects that you don't want, like wasps, or you just get spiders. And most of the time, spiders aren't venomous. The ones that will come up by your house, they're healthy, but they are a warning sign, because they make those because they hide in the grass and then they crawl up in. There's a whole lot more symbolism there. In fact, this is why this is an underlying part of my book. Johnathan Pageau just he missed a perfect opportunity, and some of this is because spiders aren't used in biblical theology at all. And I don't understand. Some of this may just be because the spiders that live in the desert don't do the same thing. They don't have the same environment as the spiders here in America. So from the place where Judaism and Christianity was born, it had different predators to interact with. So God revealed certain things to those individuals through the medium he had available. Which which is sort of why he had this may be one reason why he used snakes, because it's very similar actually. Snakes have different predatory patterns, but in America, North America, where I live, spiders, like, you get bit by a black widow or a brown recluse. Okay, brown recluse is gonna be really painful, and you need an antivenom, but you'll be fine for a couple of days. Black widow, couple of days you're dead. There are some really deadly spiders here. Now it's not as bad as in South America, but in South America you get like massive spiders. And like same in Australia. But I think this may just be this is probably just regional. God showed the images through the people he had to use. But anyways, this is where like this is my one qualm with the book here. He should have added the husband. He should have added the second husband to this woman, because she's an ungodly woman, clearly. Like, this would have been a perfect time. I don't think this like crossed his head. This crossed through his thought process, because like when you're adding and subtracting stuff, you don't think, oh, I'm gonna add a whole extra person to make a point here. There's actually a really good reason why, because this is also the only point in his entire story where someone isn't coupled, where a man and a female isn't coupled. And this would be like an unholy union still, right? But it's valuable. The first part, when Rapunzel is growing in her mother's belly, they're married. Second part, they don't even have to be married. They could just be dating, you know what I mean? Like, and like this actually could have, even if they never officially got married, this like a woman taking a second husband shows the kind of woman she is. And he could have had her in black and red. The black and green still worked because of the cabbage symbolism, but like this would have been the perfect time to have her in black and red. What else? And then like like clearly the two husband early in the story are both weak men. And then this would have been the perfect time, like after that, when once she built the tower for Repunzle, she could have forced her husband to do some of the harder labor of doing the like building the stones up for her. Like he clearly missed a very important opportunity here, which would have made the story that much better. I know like you kind of have to like draw a line somewhere. How far do you stray from the story? How far do you not? Like this would have been a perfect transition to the tower, because that tower, it's sort of, how do I put this? It's like the pinnacle of a fortress, right? Like you because Rapunzel started in a cold, self-centered home and was taken away. You kind of have to. This kind of This is kind of almost. It's similar. It follows a similar pathway to Hansel and Gretel, where Hansel and like this is where. By the way, the next book is clearly going to be Hansel and Gretel if you read the end. I'm not going to go all the way through the story, but the through line is for whatever reason, Johnathan Pageau didn't do the couple here, because she could have easily just passed through a whole bunch of couples until she got with her prince. Like obviously Johnathan Pageau, like he had the right idea. I just don't think he did it correctly. It could have been bad. It could have been failure to meet the standards, but correctly coupled parents, overreaching standards, but not coupled parents. Then her with the prince, um, double fail. They didn't correct. They didn't get married because Rapunzel was still under the protection of the witch and still under the prison. But they still had an out of marriage. I'm gonna say communion here. There's other reasons why, but like mostly my brain just can't remember the right word. But they copulated. You get it. And then at at the end, like when they split like that, Rapunzel ended up having a boy and a girl out of that. So when they finally met back together, that would have been like this. That would have been like the children are a separate set of pairing. It's weird. Like they are not married and they're not going to be sexually. They're not going to have the sexual tension because they're siblings, but at the same time, like that is a correct male and female pairing to use for the next story. But it's showing like it's going through the motions up down up down. In fact, it's sort of like 4 different points on a circle. It starts. I think it's starting the wrong way. And this like Johnathan could like this is where I also think Johnathan like he really should have had this extra male character. He did it. He did sort of, but it was at the end before the prince found Rapunzel again. He instead compared the evil queen to the hermit, and I think that's wrong because the hermit has also failed because he himself did not get married and have children. I know that sounds heretical to Orthodox Christians, but that's okay because that's where I don't agree that priests should be. I don't think that there should be any priest that isn't married. Like even if the woman like if your wife dies, whatever, or vice versa, if you die, she can go off and do. She can have a role within the church or community, but there should be no This is where I'm going to say he failed. Like he followed his tradition, and that's fine, but he failed to correctly create this like it still works within his tradition, but it's not correct because God calls us to go out into the world. He calls us to he calls us to be the wording is like a nation of priests. I think you could create the correct wording here. I could pull up the verses, but my intuition is that we are supposed to be living sacrifices in His image. So in order to do that, we can't be hiding our light. Like we can't be like protected candles. We can't be I'll just use the right wording here. We can't be lamps. We can't be lamps hidden in underneath a candlestick. We can't be hiding off. You can't have monks hiding in a sanctuary. You have to be out in the world. That's what God calls us to do. So that's why I think technically like his story works within his tradition, but his tradition is wrong. Or at least that's where I'm like, we're going to disagree here. But I think that he had the opportunity to instead have, and this is where I could say he could have had 3 characters now. He should have had, he could have had the evil queen and her new man, not married. They're just cohabitating, and she raises that daughter by herself because she won't let the weak man that she controls through social manipulation and stuff to raise that child with her. And they could have had the prince be welcomed in by an older couple who had done everything right. like I know that you could have had 3 characters here, but like this is like I'm saying add 3 characters, but like yeah, add okay, it would have been adding 2 actually, and then like replacing 1. You know what I mean? He had a better story to tell, and he didn't do it because he relied on his tradition to fill in the gaps instead of relying on the pattern, and then using the tradition to show where the pattern's going. I don't know, but he should have had more characters. That would have solved, like, the story was good, but he could have made it better. Even if they said 0 words, if they just showed up in the pictures and they were mentioned, it would have spoke volumes, and it would have made the story better. Okay, so now we're going to get to the part where I give my life updates. First of all, it's hard to see, but I got a tattoo. In case you're wondering, it's going to be mirrored. It looks like an Orthodox cross. It's not, by the way. This is mirrored. Just a reminder, this camera is mirrored. Yeah, it looks like I'm holding up my right hand. This is my left. This is my right. Ah! Look at the scars! Yeah. I'm starting a tradition. Remember that? My tradition, I'm going to start it by, like, the first thing I'm doing to myself. So that way my followers will follow after me in doing so. I don't expect them to get this large of a tattoo, but I think our bodies are temples to, how do I put this? In a sense, actually, I'll put it in really common Protestant language to start with. I think that the 3 material world that we live in we project a 4th dimensional library over it, right? I think that actually this 3-dimensional world is like a sheet that gets projected over a 4th dimensional reality that God has set up, and we are 5th dimensional beings. So the 4th dimensional, our 4th dimensional shadow needs a 3-dimensional tint over it. So I think our bodies could technically be considered tints on a journey. We are carrying these tints on a journey through this world, and that I think that it is in our best interest to make them temples to our Most High God as we go. So I decided to get a tattoo representing my beliefs. It is both a, you know what, one sec, I can pause. Okay, here we go. So just a reminder, this is mirrored. This looks like it's going this way because this is mirrored. The Orthodox cross goes that way. So because this is mirrored, this is actually pointing like that way. I ended up making it a sword and a cross at the same point. And in fact, some people see the sword before the cross, but this is Protestant Christian WASP land. This is Indiana. So like, I'm literally definitionally white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. Definitionally that actually covers more people than it's supposed to, but actually no, it doesn't. But anyways, where was I going with that? Darn it, I forget. Anyways, oh yeah, duh. A lot more people are going to see the cross first. They're going to wonder what the heck this is. Then I'm going to say 20% of the people, 20% of the population sees the sword. And the sword first. And actually, I'm going to say 40% actually see it all together. Like, they see the sword and the cross at the same time, which is cool. So that's what, 40% see the cross, 40% see both, 20% see the sword first. why. Oh, to explain where this came from. This came from my door. I have it on my door. Why is it like this? First of all, I see my beliefs as a mirror to, um, as a mirror to Orthodox Christianity. And what I mean by that is I think that humans are a fifth dimensional spirit that, um, our fourth dimensional shadow is what we is our consciousness that interacts, that wears a third dimensional temple to us. So this is sort of like I'll just go through this real quick. Jungian psychology. I've shifted it a little bit. There is the Father, the Spirit, and the Son. In fact, it's like a hierarchy, actually. Even though they're all three the same being, they exist at different levels. The Father, our fifth dimensional self, is the curator of the library. It is the relevance realizer. It is the I say Father, but it is like, yeah. I'll say Father because we each have it. And this isn't God. This is how we're mirrored to God. This is the organizing. This is the character at the center of the organizing. No, this is the character that has chosen the organizing story and the stories around it to fill in. Like how a fairy tale has stories that help guide it and help you interpret it. That character is the Father. So he's created laws, he's your relevance realizer. And what I mean by that is you live in a story, you have to filter out so much, and there's so many facts, and you just have to identify what's relevant, what's important to guide you through it. So he's your relevance realizer. He is the eliminator. He has set up your framework that you live by. He tells you what's right and wrong, where to, what are the priorities of what not to do, what are the priorities to do. This can change, by the way. It's hard, but this is what Christianity does. Christianity changes this to point it to submitting to God. Your fourth dimensional spirit actually interacts more so with the spiritual and informational realm. So to put things, yes, this actually doesn't have as much integration with you as you think. This actually has this is like your one leg here out into the spiritual and informational realm. This actually gives you the opportunity to step back in from seeing bigger picture ideas that it sees that you don't. So it identifies spirits that you would never see. In fact, most people do. Here, I'm gonna do it like this. It identifies spirits from patterns that you don't normally see. It receives information that you wouldn't normally get. So this is why you can act. Here's the thing: you can actually tell when a building has bad mojo if the ultrasound is if there's a lot of ultrasound coming from it. And that is you will feel like it's haunted or something, because actually the wood and the concrete is vibrating because it's having micro failures. So it's giving off an ultrasound, and your body can pick that up. It's not just your body, but your spirit, your Father, your Spirit, your Son. Your spirit will pick up on stuff outside of you and bring it in. And then your Son, your embodiment, this is the physical stuff of the world that you interact with. It's the paper. It's hard to explain, but there's a threefold here. It's all the same spirit. In fact, there's one guiding spirit that leads all three. It's like how a rose has multiple petals, but it's still a rose. You can identify which petals go where. You can identify the different parts, but it's all one. It's all one being. But this here picks up different information. This is gonna get like tactile. It's gonna get stuff from your. It's gonna get surprisingly enough, you get more information from the rest of your body than just touch. How do I put this? There your spinal cord will think for you. I know that sounds crazy, but you will see a snake, your body will see it before your brain catches on. There's reflexes like that your physical body will pick up for you. And your goal is to integrate all three of those in attunement to God. God atoned for our sins so that way we may be reborn and live with Him. But in order to be reborn, we have to let our ego die and be reborn in His image. We have to set aside our worldly desires, the status, the pleasure, the short-sightedness of everything, and we have to submit ourselves to God. In fact, I say He atoned, so we attune. And this is where I'm going to say that the attunement here, I'm going to steal the word theosis from Orthodox Christians, because it's more so like, I don't think we become gods through the process of deification. I think we are already somewhere I think we are in the level between angels and God. There's a space where we exist. Angels don't really have angels. I say angels, but angels and demons are, because demons are fallen angels. It's really easy to understand that with my interpretation that they are as spirits, they only exist within the good, evil, spiritual, informational axis. They don't exist on our plane. They exist in a plane lower than what we have. Where was I going with this? In fact, I'll just be very clear about that right now. Demons are those spirits who have chosen to untune to God's frequency. It's I know that sounds crazy. You start getting into some new agey stuff, but there's a lot of new evidence, and I really agree with it that the world is a whole bunch more frequency based. And I think that that most of reality, the frequencies aren't actually frequencies. You are passing through, like, there are fourth dimensional spirals that are passing through this third dimensional reality. So that's why we get sine waves and stuff. And that's why electrons kind of move in that system, because they're not actually just electrons. They are both electrons and photons. And even though we can't figure out which one they are at any specific time, they're actually just both. And it just depends on how much they express themselves in one axis versus the other is what we catch them at. And there's probably some and we can't actually tell how much they are of one or the other at any one time, except that we can definitely tell when they're one or the other. But anyways, back to the idea. Anyways, I got a tattoo because I wanted to express my beliefs that, it's hard to get on camera. There. I want to express my beliefs on my body, that my body is a temple, like a tabernacle. There we go. The first tabernacle was a tent, right? The Literally, the Israelites carried a tent that was smoke by day, fire by night through the world. That is our image of God through reality. Like that is how we are made in his image throughout. God made himself manifest as the tabernacle within the Israelites. He was Jesus before he walked among us. He had the Israelites create a tabernacle first in his image, then he walked among us as Jesus. So it is in that way that we also walk in this world as Christians once we have completely committed ourselves to God. Wow, that ended up being 2 videos, but it's a really cool idea, and it's because I needed to explain why I got a freaking tattoo. And you know what? Suffering is good for us. Suffering is a tool to teach. It is a tool to, and the reason why it's an important tool to teach, it's a teacher. Because suffering makes you reevaluate what's important to you. You all of a sudden no longer care about the $1 million opportunities when your daughter starts to, I'm going to use Jordan Peterson here. When your daughter starts to suffer from crippling arthritis, from autoimmune issues, you no longer care about moving to your next big teaching opportunity. You stay where you're at because she needs stability more than you need a promotion. You no longer, like, I no longer care to go back to university because I am needed more as a leader right now. That's where that was going, huh? Anyways, thank you. I'm surprised this ended up being 2 videos in one. But that's really cool. I'm gonna expand really clearly on the idea on my next video. But my body's a temple. My body's a tabernacle, and I want to walk through my people. I want to walk with my people.